The Celtics did make it look fairly easy in game 2 at home without Jayson Tatum. And I don't know how far they can go without Jayson Tatum, but I can tell you this pretty confidently. They can beat Orlando without Jayson Tatum. And from what I saw last night, they might be able to sweep Orlando without Jayson Tatum, to be quite frank with you, which is contradictory to what I said before the series. I thought Orlando just were enough of a group of pricks that they could make this maybe a 6-game series. I don't think they can. They don't have nearly the talent outside of Paolo Banchero, who was not as efficient in game 2 as game 1, but did have 32 points, was still pretty impressive for them. That team just does not have the talent to keep up with the Celtics, even without their all NBA first team player, because they do have another all NBA caliber player. Jaylen Brown steps up again. It wasn't the best start to the game, but he ends up with 36 on 12 and 19 shooting and was the guy down the stretch for them. Not a tight game, but Orlando kept it close enough that you kept going to the Jaylen Brown well, and it kept working. Kristaps Porzingis, 20 points off the bench again and bloodied up. How about that for the image, man? We're out here bitching about this hard foul, this routine NBA playoff foul from Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and meanwhile, Kristaps Porzingis is just gushing blood like he's a fucking Rocky movie, and it's bleeding into his hair. It's gross, and he's right back out there. He's hitting shots. He's grabbing rebounds. He was I think the best player all the way around for the Celtics last night, but it's tough to argue with what Jaylen Brown did with the 36 points. So I was a little worried about it going into game 2. But I think the Celtics team can get it done without Jayson Tatum. The next round, whether it's against New York or Detroit, probably the Knicks, that's probably not an option to do it without Jayson Tatum. But for this one, it is. And we went over the numbers yesterday a little bit. We'll go into it more here. They're 8-2 this year without Jayson Tatum. Regular season and the playoffs are very different in the NBA. And by the way, both those losses came to the Orlando Magic, but both of them, the rosters were completely depleted. It was not just Jayson Tatum out. Both of them, they had 4 of their 5 starters at least out. I think the first one, they only had 8 players or 9 players available. It was wild for an NBA game. So that's a little misleading, but this team steps up when Jayson Tatum's not there. The narrative around the NBA is that, Jayson Tatum's got a super team. Look how they could do without him. But the reality is they have a team full of guys that sacrifice, and they step the F up when Jayson Tatum is not out there. When you look at the numbers this year, 24-25 season, this is great from StatMuse, by the way. They go every player with and without Jayson Tatum. And you look at just the points per game. Jrue Holiday, 3 more points per game without Tatum. Horford, a point per game more without Tatum. Kristaps Porzingis, 5 points more without Jayson Tatum. Jaylen Brown, 1.5 points more without Jayson Tatum. Derrick White, almost 6 points per game more without Jayson Tatum. These guys step it up. And it's a new guy, right? It was Derrick White in game 1 with Jrue Holiday making some of the big plays. Peyton Pritchard with 19. Brown had a bad game. Game 2, without Tatum, Brown leads the way, 36, no questions asked. And he gets the most misleading graphic of all time on the TNT broadcast there. I don't know if you guys caught this. I should have taken a picture of it to put it on the screen. But it said most 30-point playoff games in Celtics history. And it was Paul Pierce and then Jaylen Brown and Kevin McHale. And I'm like, what? You've got to be kidding me. How is that not? How are Larry Bird and Jayson Tatum not in that graphic? Well, because they listed 3, but it was number 5, 6, and 7. I was like, well, that's pretty misleading. Tatum is ahead of him. Larry Bird is ahead of him. But Jaylen Brown steps up when they need him. Remember, he didn't. Jayson Tatum had a bad game in that game 1 against the Pacers last year until overtime. He did pretty well in that. But Brown got 40. I think it was actually game 2 now that I say it. Brown got 40. This game, no Tatum. Brown gets 36. Everyone elevates their game. They shoot more threes. They make more threes. The team still shoots 36% from three, even without Tatum in the lineup. So they can get by Orlando, man. Orlando is going to try to be really physical. I don't think they've crossed the line of dirty yet, like the way that the Heat do, because the Heat, that's how they know they're going to win. But you just hope and pray you kind of get through this first series healthy, or I guess relatively healthy, with Tatum already banged up, because they've battled their injuries this year. Obviously, Porzingis has missed time. He always misses time. Holiday's missed time. I don't think Brown has been 100% this entire year, but you gotta start talking about Jaylen Brown and his legacy for a guy that's still in his prime, man. Because here's what people will talk about, oh, Jaylen Brown's the clutch guy. Jayson Tatum's not. Right? Brown wins the finals MVP. The playoff Brown is better than the playoff Tatum. And I don't even necessarily need to compare those two, because I find it wild how much we forget Jayson Tatum's great playoff performances. But that said, in an NBA Finals where nobody ran away with the award, the MVP award, Jaylen Brown won it, and he was pretty damn good. And he's pretty damn good in the conference finals too. Won both of those MVP awards that both could have gone to Tatum if you look at their stats. But Brown, even though he's not been 100% this year, he steps up again when his team needs him. That is what you can point to. Don't necessarily point to the stats, because they are pretty good. Well, don't do a stat comparison between he and Tatum. But when Tatum's not having a good game, or in this case when Tatum is out, everyone in their dog is thinking, okay, it's now Jaylen Brown's going to take over. And it's not always that easy. But for him it is. And that is the real value of Jaylen Brown, is the maximum effort he's going to give you on both ends of the floor, especially when his team really needs it. That's not to say he's just cruising when they don't need him, but you've seen some bad stretches from him this year, and the rest of the Celtics have picked him up. When they need him to be the All-NBA guy, they need him to be the Jaylen Brown that won the conference finals MVP, that won the NBA finals MVP. He comes through. He comes through and he does it. Would it shock anybody if Tatum misses the next 2 games and Jaylen Brown averages 32, 33 points a game? Wouldn't shock me at all. In fact, we got to the point where we expect that. Not many teams in this league are expecting that from a guy who's made one All-NBA team. He's not going to make it this year because he didn't hit the minimum requirement of games. And he didn't make it last year, although he should have. But you look at the teams that are competing for championships and winning championships in the case of the Celtics, and most of them do not have a guy that has made one All-NBA team that can step up as much as Jaylen Brown does when their star player is out, and has a supporting cast around them that will make that happen. Of course, we don't get the argument of, oh, Jaylen Brown's playing for a super team. We don't get that, because it's bull. It's bull for both of those guys. But I think this is where you start writing Jaylen Brown's legacy, man. He comes up big in the postseason, and he comes up really big when his team needs it. And for those who have followed his career, I still sit back in amazement that's the place we are right now with Jaylen Brown. It's a real testament to what he's done. I know we're gushing over a first-round game here, but the dude's resume for where he started was pretty incredible. I wasn't booing when he got drafted, but I was stunned. I thought they were going to get Chris Dunn. I was like, take the Providence kid. The sure thing, Chris Dunn. Instead, they took this raw, defensive, very athletic leaper who played 1 year at Cal, who stunk. Cal did, not necessarily Jaylen Brown. We're like, who the hell is this guy? And he goes from, oh, maybe he's a 3-and-D, could defend a couple different positions, make some corner threes, to all NBA talent, NBA Finals MVP, terrific at creating his own shot, good three-point shooter, is unstoppable in transition. Like, I just did not think we would get this skill set out of Jaylen Brown. And this comparison is going to sound wild, but just in terms of the skill set, he's close to Russell Westbrook. I think that's fair to say. Like, he went from being an Avery Bradley potentially to a Russell Westbrook, a former MVP of this league. By the way, he's a much better shooter than Russ, obviously, and doesn't put up triple doubles the way that Russ did. But that's the skill set that we're talking about. So can the Celtics win this series without Jayson Tatum, which is the original question I posed? Yes, they can. They can win this series without Jayson Tatum. They can sweep this series without Jayson Tatum because they have Jaylen Brown and a bunch of other guys that step up. Again, the narrative will be spun as, oh, it's Tatum being carried by a super team. But Jaylen Brown's great. That's how the narrative will be. But the fact is that when Tatum's not out there, he's got guys that will step up. And in other games, when Brown's not available or Brown's not playing well, the other guys step up. Brown didn't play well in game one, but Derrick White stepped up. Peyton Pritchard stepped up. That's what the haters hate, is that there is a team around him. They want it to just be Anthony Edwards, who's not a good three-point shooter, not a very efficient offensive player, has a ton of explosiveness and good stats, but has nobody around him. And he'll lose in the first round. And that's what the haters want Jayson Tatum to be. That's what the haters will want Jaylen Brown to be when Jaylen Brown has another great couple of games here. But shout out to Jaylen Brown, man. It's been ups and downs. Certainly this year, I thought there were times where he was killing the team, but he's really lifting them right now. And he's not afraid to answer that bell of whatever kind of physical game you want to play, Orlando. I know Al Horford and Drew Holiday are getting up in arms over it, which I think is a little silly, but Jaylen Brown will answer that bell, and it's not going to be good for your team. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. How far can the Celtics go without Jayson Tatum? Who knows? He might be back in the lineup next game. Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Only about 10% of you watching are actually subscribed. Hit that subscribe button because we're here live on YouTube 5 days a week, talking nothing but Boston sports, and then coming at you wherever you get your podcasts as well. I'm your host, Cam Stewart. Zach Burke keeps us on the air. Check out the other videos on the channel talking Celtics and everything going on in Boston sports.